Shalom, my friends, this is Max Joseph, and although it is not the 10th of the month, I decided to make a special top 10 video because, well, the world is a bit of a hot mess and we're all hopefully social distancing right now. And I was gonna save this for April 10th, but I'm doing it now because why not? The world's exploding anyway. My friends, it is time for the top 10s. Today's top 10 special edition video will be my top 10 movies that made me cry. And unfortunately, this list is limited to 10, but as a special treat, I'm gonna add a few honorable mentions that really got me because I could probably make this list at least 50 long. Also, major spoiler alert for all of these movies. If you haven't seen them, feel free to just move on to the next one. But before I go into my top 10, type your top 10 movies that made you cry in the comments, and make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel, and ding that little bell to get notified whenever I post new videos. And so, here are my top 10 movies that made me cry. Number 10, Remember the Titans. After leading his football team to 15 winning seasons, Coach Bill Yost is demoted and replaced by Herman Boone. Tough, opinionated, and as different from the beloved Yost as he could be. The two men learn to overcome their differences and turn a group of hostile young men into champions. I've had a lot of people asking, what are my top 10 movies of all time? Well, guess what's on that list? Remember the Titans. First, it has pretty much everything I look for in a movie. Great message, phenomenal acting and direction, well paced, and they get you right in the feels. And this one got me right in the feels many times. And there are so many beautiful moments throughout this movie. And let me say this now before I even say what really got me in this movie and in the 9 movies following. I don't just cry when someone dies or something tragic happens. I will also cry when something really beautiful happens, like when I see something visually striking, a really powerful song, gorgeous cinematography, really wonderful animation. And in this movie, it was just a lot of powerful messages. The first cry started when Coach Boone takes his team for an early morning run to the Gettysburg Cemetery. Denzel Washington gives my favorite speech he's ever given. It's just so good, so moving, so Denzel, and what he's able to accomplish in his speech is just really incredible because he was able to get rid of all the racist feelings these teammates had for each other and was able to truly make them one team, come together. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It's just an all-time movie moment for me. Second big cry was at the end when team captain Jerry Bertier dies. He was in a car accident earlier in the movie and became paralyzed from the waist down, which meant that he wasn't able to play in the state championship. But after they end up winning, it flashes forward to 10 years later, and we find out he died in a car accident caused by a drunk driver. His entire team attends the funeral, and it is just really brutal. Especially when they sing the na 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 na, hey, 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 goodbye. Oh, chills, just saying it. Number 9, Logan. Old man Logan caring for an ailing Professor X in a hideout on the Mexican border. But Logan's attempts to hide from the world and his legacy are upended when a young mutant arrives, pursued by dark forces. So I'm a gigantic superhero movie person, in case you didn't know. I love the X-Men saga. And I think that it's probably a toss-up between Robert Downey Jr. and Hugh Jackman for the most perfect casting for a superhero character. Anyway, I went in expecting something really good, but I didn't expect to come out saying that at the time it was the best superhero movie since The Dark Knight. The action is amazing. It's actually my favorite work Mangold has done, and far and away my favorite Hugh Jackman performance. So the first tears, as a shocker to no one, happened when Charles Xavier was murdered by X-24. But like, it didn't wreck me yet, but the tears were for sure there. Then the burial happened with Hugh Jackman's stunning performance by the grave, and then holding hands with Laura. It just really got me, but I was still keeping it together. Y'all would have been so proud of me. After that scene, I got my shit together and then proceeded to watch the rest of this masterpiece. And then the final battle happens. And then the big thing happens. We finally see Logan die a brutal death after saving the lives of all of the other young mutants. And it wouldn't have been as gut-wrenching if it wasn't for Daphne Keane holding him in her arms, calling him daddy, and telling him that she doesn't want him to go. It crushed me. Watching a child witness their parents' death is just like too much for my tear ducts to handle. After that, I compose myself a little bit. The funeral is beautiful, but then they really got me. The grave has a twig that looks like a cross, which obviously is his gravestone. But as all the other kids go to finish their journey, Laura looks back at the cross, then simply turns it on its side to make an X. That is when I lost my shit. That is when I audibly started sobbing. That is genius and just plain rude. It is a shot that I will never forget. Brilliant and just so incredibly brutal. Number 8, Rent. I'm a huge musical theater person, and one of my favorite musicals is Rent. If you don't know too much about it, it's a rock opera that tells the story of 1 year in the life of a group of bohemians struggling in a modern-day East Village, New York. It centers around Mark and Roger, 2 roommates. While a former tragedy has made Roger numb to life, Mark tried to capture it through his attempts to make a film. In the year that follows, the group deals with love, loss, HIV and AIDS, and modern-day life. Well, in the story, we eventually meet the most beautiful and perfect couple, Tom Collins and Angel. They are the heartbeat of the entire story. Eventually, Angel tragically dies from AIDS. We watch Tom Collins holding the lifeless love of his life in a hospital bed, then transition to Angel's funeral, where we watch Tom Collins sing arguably my favorite song written for theater, I'll Cover You reprise. And it is just so sad, and one of the hardest times I've cried in a theater. In the movie and original Broadway production, it's played by Jesse L. Martin, and me. He is just so good. Like, I get emotional when someone dies, but when someone dies from something as awful as AIDS, then when they sing about it and sing the shit out of it, it's just too much for me. It's just too much for me to handle. Fun fact, this was one of the movies I saw the most times in theaters. I believe I went 6 times? It was either 6 or 7. So the movie still holds a very special place in my heart, and no matter how many times I watch it, it still gets me. Number 7, Coco. Despite his family's baffling, generations-old ban on music, Miguel dreams of becoming an accomplished musician like his idol Ernesto de la Cruz. Desperate to prove his talent, Miguel finds himself in the stunning and colorful land of the dead following the mysterious chain of events. Along the way, he meets the charming trickster Hector, and together they set off on an extraordinary journey to unlock the real story behind Miguel's family history. Okay, deep breath. If this movie didn't get you, I don't know what will. Arguably the best Pixar movie to date. I'm going to use this phrase a lot. It's something I like to call the Pixar dagger. Pixar likes to do this thing where they just get you. They get you right in the feels, and it's a feeling that you just weren't expecting to happen to you. But no matter what, it happens. And you just can't function after. They stab you right in the heart, twist it a little bit, leave for the weekend to think about your life and your choices. They come back, take the knife out, and apologize with a baby riding a golden retriever puppy who offers you your favorite candy bar. It's so painful, but so beautiful and happy. This was the case with Coco. I was okay with the entire thing until the end. Throughout the movie, we hear the famous song thought to be written by Ernesto de la Cruz, when in fact, de la Cruz stole the song from Hector, who turns out to be Miguel's great-great-grandfather. Hector wrote this song for his daughter Coco, and he used to sing it to her. Problem is, because Hector's photo isn't allowed on the ofrenda, which is a way to honor and remember your family members who have passed on the Day of the Dead, nobody remembers Hector because he was disgraced, which means that Hector will be disappearing from existence because unfortunately, Coco is dying, who is the only remaining family member that has any memories of him. That was a lot of words, and I hope you got them all. So after Miguel realizes Hector is his real great-great-grandfather, he returns to the living and sings Remember Me for Coco before she dies, in the hopes that it will give her a little life to help her remember Hector before he's forgotten. So he gets there, and he whips out the guitar and sings the same song to Mama Coco with tears in his eyes, and it is just mean on Pixar's part. Like, why do you do this shit to us? It was so sad and gave one of the biggest Pixar daggers in history. Number 6, Hook. There are certain movies that we all grow up watching. Mine consisted of movies like Airplane, Remember the Titans, That Thing You Do, Shawshank Redemption. A great plethora of movies and many a genre. But what my family really resonates with is the story of Peter Pan. The 1953 Disney classic, the book, the Mary Martin version, the 2003 version, Finding Neverland. We all just really love everything that this story is. So combine my favorite story with probably my favorite actor, Robin Williams, directed by one of my favorite directors, Steven Spielberg, you have the definition of a Max Joseph film. And there isn't really just like one specific moment that wrecks me like there are for pretty much all the other movies on this list. Because this was just kind of a constant stream of tears for 142 minutes, Robin Williams has this very strange effect on me where if I watch him do anything, I have this visceral reaction and I just start crying. I can't help it. There's something about the way he speaks and moves that just does it to me. Please note, I haven't watched this movie since Robin Williams died. I'm just not emotionally able to watch this while knowing that the world is without Robin Williams. Number 5, Up. Carl Fredricksen spent his entire life dreaming of exploring the globe and experiencing life to its fullest. But at age 78, life seems to have passed him by, until a twist of fate and a persistent 8-year-old wilderness explorer named Russell gives him a new lease on life. To start, I genuinely believe that the beginning montage of Up is some of the greatest filmmaking I've ever seen in my life. End of that statement. But it really wasn't the opening montage that gets me, which it obviously did. It's when Carl and Russell split up after their argument when they finally make it to Paradise Falls, and Carl is left alone in his house and stumbles upon that our adventure book. He opens it, and he's reminded of all the amazing memories that he was able to experience with his wife, Ellie. Then he finds the final page, Stuff I'm Going to Do, which he thought the pages following that were empty, but as he begins to close the book, he sees that there's more in it. It turns out Ellie added more to the book, like wedding photos and pictures of them on their couches and at birthdays and just other adorable photos of them throughout their lives. Okay, so that alone is enough to make me want to social distance myself because I just couldn't be around anyone. But then, what do you think happens? The Pixar dagger. The last page is a picture of Ellie on her couch with a note that says, "Thanks for the adventure. Now go have a new one. Love, Ellie." Then the camera zooms out to show Ellie's empty sofa chair. And that is when I absolutely lost my shit. This was probably the first time I experienced what I like to call the Viola Davis cry. 5 through 1 all included Max doing the Viola Davis cry. The snot dripping down the nose, just like ugly sobbing, heaving, trying desperately to catch my breath. It is one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my life. And also one of the most touching. Number 4, Toy Story 3. It's the whole gang of Andy's toys who haven't been played with for years. Andy is about to leave for college and his toys find themselves accidentally left at a daycare center. Our favorite toys have to band together to escape the daycare and return home to Andy. The best way to explain my experience of watching this movie is to tell you the story of my experience I shared in an earlier video. I don't want to reuse content, but it's just too perfect to not say, so if you already watched the top 10 animated movies of the decade, feel free to move ahead to number 3. Picture this. June 18th, 2010. An 18-year-old Max Joseph enters the movie theater with his big sister. Keep in mind, I'm the exact age of Andy. So when he was packing for college, I was packing for college. I grew up with this kid. Okay, I'm sitting there with my big sister and we're watching, we're laughing, we're having a good time. And then shit starts to hit the fan and Pixar does that Pixar dagger that they just love to do. Basically the part where the toys are about to die and then when Andy gives his toys away. So I'm sitting there, inconsolable, out of breath, ugly sobbing with my sister who is having a hard enough time dealing with the fact that her little brother is growing up and is about to attend the same college that she went to. We are in a theater full of mostly children who just look at us like we are lunatics. We start laughing uncontrollably about how hilarious it is that we can't stop crying. And then we receive even more confused, concerned, and even some angry looks from parents. Point being, I grew up with this story and these characters, and it was the perfect ending. It had a beautiful story, stunning animation, Tom Hanks, Tim Allen killing it as usual, and just the perfect way to send a weepy Max Joseph to college. Number 3, The Good Dinosaur. The Good Dinosaur is an epic journey into the world of dinosaur, where we meet one named Arlo who makes an unlikely human friend, Spot. I'm about to get very personal here, and I've been going back and forth with whether or not I want to bring this up and make it public. But because it's a giant part of who I am, I think it's okay for people to know. in 2011, my dad passed away. I don't need to get into the details of it all in the moment, but I bring it up because there are movies that are really, really hard for me to get through. Like if it's about a father and a son, a parent who dies, anything like that, it's a hard watch for me. So back to the movie and why I felt like that was the right time to just tell everyone. This is the only Pixar movie I didn't see in theaters. Thanks, sweet baby Moses, for that. It came out when I was doing a show, so I just missed it, unfortunately. So I watched it for the first time on Sunday, June 18th, 2017. Why do I remember that? I'll get to that in a minute. So my fiance, Sam, was doing an awesome production of Guys and Dolls in Greece at an amazing theater in Maine. And we planned this really, really sweet FaceTime date to both order Domino's pizza and watch a movie at the same time. She also hadn't seen The Good Dinosaur, and all we knew about it was that it was Pixar and the trailers looked super cute. So we're watching the movie, enjoying it, when something happens in it pretty early on. Well, in The Good Dinosaur, we see Arlo's father die towards the very beginning. Great. We're starting out great. The story keeps going. Super cute, super Pixar-y, and then it happens. The Pixar dagger. We watch Arlo try and communicate with Spot by showing him his family by using twigs. He puts a twig for each member of his family standing up, his father being the tallest, and then he draws a circle around them and says, family. Spot then does the same thing. He grabs 3 twigs, the smaller one is him, and the 2 taller ones represent his family. He draws a circle around them, then pushes the 2 taller twigs down, then buries them in the sand. Arlo, now understanding that they have something in common, pushes his father's twig down, buries it in the sand, then rests his face on it and says, I miss him, then cries. I cannot tell you the amount of tears and laughter that was happening between Sam and I. It was a gigantic mix of sadness because we're watching a movie where the father tragically died and his son is mourning him, and we were laughing because Sam was mortified that this was happening because she knows what I can and can't watch, and it's of course not her fault, and I'm laughing because she doesn't know what to do with herself, and it's just so awful that I can't help but laugh while also sobbing. This was one of the things I should never have watched because it's just not worth it, but it's not over. We were both sitting there hundreds of miles apart, eating Domino's pizza, crying, but also laughing hysterically because of how awful this was. And then to finish it all off, at the end, Spot finds other humans. So he's finally with his own kind, and Arlo knows that that's where he needs to be. So he puts Spot with the other humans and draws a circle around all of them, representing Spot's new family. Just brutal. But are you ready for the kicker and why I remember that exact date? Because it was Father's Day. You, Pixar. You, I love you. Number 2, Avengers Endgame. If you've watched my channel, you knew this was coming, but are probably very surprised it's not number 1, but I'll explain that in a moment. So here's a picture of me on Thursday, April 25th, 2019, post-Avengers Endgame for everyone to enjoy. I remember that day because I just remember when I saw Avengers Endgame because it was like a monumental moment in my life. This movie just took my breath away in every way possible. But let's talk about why a superhero movie tore me in half. First, know that I feel the way about the Marvel Cinematic Universe the same way a baby looks at a cookie. I adore this franchise and I want it at all times of the day. And as of today, I've seen Endgame 30 times. So when I went into Endgame, I was expecting nothing but perfection, and did I receive that in full? I'll get to where the tears first started. It all began with On Your Left, or as the world knows it, the portal scene. When I saw everyone there returning, that's where the tears really started to get a move on. I was able to compose myself then throughout most of the final battle until the snap. The snap took my breath away and got me because of just how beautiful it was. And then, Tony's death. You start off with Rhodey being next to his best friend, then you see Peter go up to him, telling him that, oh, Mr. Stark, we won, then just apologizing. And it's awful. And then, good old Pepper Potts comes in. She asks for his vitals and tells him to look at her, and she says, Tony, look at me. We'll be okay. You can rest now. We see Pepper and Tony's hands together on his suit. The suit goes dark and his hand falls to the ground. This is where I was inconsolable, like unable to form sentences if my life depended on it. But after that, I calmed down for the next few minutes after his death, but then they pull out the callback to the first MCU movie, Iron Man, with the proof that Tony Stark has a heart thing. It was like watching the whole thing over again. But then the one that really got me was an even deeper cut to the first movie, when Happy asks Tony's daughter if she's hungry and what she wants, and she says, cheeseburger. And before Hap even has the chance to respond, I know that that was a callback to when Tony first arrived back home after being held captive, and that was when the true floodgates opened up. But again, calm down after a little bit. But then the last scene of Steve finally getting to dance with Peggy, I couldn't even lift my hands up to clap because I was unable to move. Before I get into my number one pick of movies that made me cry, here are a few honorable mentions. Inside Out, Finding Neverland, Schindler's List, The Shawshank Redemption, A Walk to Remember, Jojo Rabbit, Fences. Number one, Where the Wild Things Are. So this one may really surprise people, and it actually surprised myself, because I had always thought that Endgame was the movie that made me cry the hardest. But when I looked back at all the films that I kind of remember making me cry, I totally forgot about this one. Where the Wild Things Are shows us a young boy who happens to be named Max, by the way. He imagines himself running away from his mom and sailing to a far-off land where large talking beasts crown him as their king, play rumpus, build forts, and discover secret hideaways. Not only is this probably Sam and I's favorite children's book, but it is also the only time I cried to a point where I had to leave the room I was in because I was crying so hard. You may be thinking of the obvious place in Where the Wild Things Are where Max has to say goodbye to all of his friends. Well, it's not. Remember when I mentioned those movies that are hard to get through? Like when it's about a father or a parent dying or something like that. Does that happen in this movie? No. But the final shot of this movie, we see Max return home to his mother, and you see him sitting and eating at their dinner table. And the shot is so simple. It's just his mom watching him eat, looking so happy and proud of her child. And this got me because every single morning growing up, when I woke up and had breakfast, my dad would stop everything he was doing, come sit next to me, and watch me eat my breakfast. So I saw this shot, and all of a sudden, years and years of memories just like flashed before my eyes of my dad sitting next to me, watching me eat a bowl of cereal with the proudest look in his eyes. I had no idea that was going to happen to me. But it was as if I relived what happened to him all over again. It was one of the strangest moments that I've ever experienced. I was in my roommate's bedroom with some other friends, and when the credits rolled, I didn't say a single word. I got up, went to my bedroom, and sobbed for a solid 30 minutes. It was like shivering crying. So if there's a message here, if you're lucky enough to be a parent, I hope you love your kids as much as my dad loved his kids. And if you're a kid who is lucky enough to have parents, I hope you enjoy the little moments that you have with your parents. Don't take anything for granted. Whew! Those are my top 10 movies that made me cry. Agree? Disagree? Let me know what your top 10 are in the comments. Let's chat about it. And so my friends, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like this video, give me your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to this channel, as well as follow me on Twitter and Instagram at mjoseph492. Like my page on Facebook, which is facebook.com/MaxJosephFilmPerson. And if you really love me, please consider being a patron on Patreon, where you can get patron-only content, guest interviews, giveaways, and lots more. You can even give me a film to review, a 10th of the month top 10 category, a ranking, or a song to sing. And that video will be dedicated to you. Stay healthy, wash your hands, social distancing. Shalom, my friends.